you guys, my name is Aubrey and this is my channel, and today I want to walk you guys through the process of applying for forgiveness through the Paycheck Protection Program. Now, as you guys know, the rules with the PPP have changed so much over the last year, and more recently they've changed to really benefit solo entrepreneurs and people that do not have employees. And with this change to just the general PPP application has come changes to the PPP forgiveness as well. So in this video, I'm going to be walking you guys through the steps of applying for PPP forgiveness from the perspective of a solo entrepreneur, meaning somebody that does not have employees. So let's get started. Now, before we begin, I would like to preface that there is a lot of different types of forgiveness applications for the PPP. And depending on your business structure, the type of business you have, as well as how much money you accepted through the PPP, this will dictate what type of form you need to use in order to apply for forgiveness. In this video, we're going to be applying through the application form 358S, that's 3508S. This is a simplified form that is applicable to a lot of solo entrepreneurs, meaning people that do not have employees. This form is simplified and allows full forgiveness through owner's compensation, and if you're somebody who's confused by that, don't worry, I will explain in a few minutes. So before you dig into your own forgiveness, make sure that you're using the correct form and that what I am talking about in this video applies to you. That is super important and it is crucial in order to get full forgiveness. All right, so here we are at the PPP forgiveness application. You can see here it says form 358S, that's 3508S. The S stands for simplified, and this is the form that you will use if you're somebody who is a solo entrepreneur and is wanting 100% forgiveness by paying yourself through the PPP. Now, whenever it comes to the PPP, there's a lot of things that you need to know, and I'm going to try to explain it in as easy to understand way as possible. But with the PPP, there are strict guidelines about how much money you can spend and where you can spend it and in what time frame you can spend it. And basically, if you don't follow these guidelines to a T, you risk having to pay these funds back and not being able to get them forgiven. Now, in the last few weeks, or in the last few, I would say 6 weeks, there has been changes to the PPP that allows for solo entrepreneurs, meaning people that do not have employees, to more efficiently not only apply for the PPP program, but also apply for forgiveness and apply for 100% forgiveness through the PPP. And the rules for solo entrepreneurs is slightly different than the rules for people that have employees, that have a LLC, that have a company. And because of this, I really cannot stress enough how important it is to understand your unique circumstances, because what I'm talking about in this video may not be applicable to everybody. So again, if you're somebody that does not have employees, if you're somebody that has a side hustle, a side gig, you may or may not have an LLC, then this form would be applicable to you. But it is very important to understand that, because if you're somebody who uses this form and you're not able to use it, you may not get full forgiveness. If you're somebody who should use this form and you do not use this form, that could risk not giving you full forgiveness as well. There are just a lot of things to keep in mind here. So again, make sure you understand what you're doing before moving forward. So the first section here is just giving general business information, your business legal name. Again, we're applying for this from the perspective of somebody that does not have an LLC and that is a solo entrepreneur. So in this case, I would just use my name, Aubrey Janik. If you have an LLC and that's what you applied for the PPP under, use that, but if not, just use your name. DBA is doing business as, this is your trade name. If you don't have one, simply leave it blank. If you do have one, put that there. Next is your business address. Put the business address that you put in the application. If that's your home address, that is perfectly acceptable. It's wherever you can be located, whether it be your business address or your home address. Of course, if you have a business address, put that, but if you're a solo entrepreneur without an LLC, you probably don't have a business address, and in that case, just put your home address. Naics Code, this is like an identifier basically of what industry or what niche you're in for your business. If you don't know what this is, then just leave it blank. It is not a required field, but if you know what your code is and if you're familiar with this, then put that there. Next is your TIN, so either your EIN or your social security number. You would of course want to do whatever one is applicable to you. If you have an LLC, put your EIN. If not, put your social security number, but that is required. You will need to put your social. Next is your business phone number. You can use your cell phone number, your home phone. It just basically needs to be a phone number that you have access to and that you can get contacted through. Next is primary contact. You would probably just put yourself, I would assume, but whoever is going to be the primary contact of this formal forgiveness application, that's what you would want to put here. Next is email address. The SBA communicates quite a lot through email, so I really think it's important to do an email address that you check often, that you have access to. Like, don't use your junk email that you just put a bunch of spam stuff into. You want it to be a real email that you do check often, because they will be sending you emails regarding your forgiveness. Next is you need to select, is this your first draw or your second draw for the PPP? Are you applying for forgiveness for the first draw or the second draw? This is important because the rules are slightly different. If you have not received any funds before, then it would be your first draw. If you have received funds before, then it would be your second draw. For this example, we will simply put first draw. Next is the SBA PPP loan number, as well as the lender PPP loan number, and then the PPP loan amount. This all will be found on your loan documentation. Whenever you got your PPP, you probably got sent, not probably, you did get sent a document that you had to sign. And in that document, there were a ton of different information that you needed to know as the recipient of that loan, including things like interest rates, the terms and conditions of the loan, as well as the loan number and the PPP lender number. All of this information is found in that documentation. I know that with online lenders, it was most oftenly sent in a DocuSign. And so you should have saved that whenever you sign that. With like traditional lenders like Chase Bank, Wells Fargo, things like that, they may have given you a paper copy. But either way, put that number there. It should be in your documentation. If you don't have that information anymore, you will need to contact your lender, as you do need that in order to move forward. The loan amount and the loan distribution date will also be found in the documentation as well. The distribution date is just the date that the funds got distributed to you. Employees at the time of the loan application. So this would be employees that you have employed, like W-2 employees or 1099 employees. If you're just working like by yourself, you don't have any employees, just put 0. It's not like the EIDL where you count yourself. You would just want to put 0 in this case because you don't have employees. You're just working as a solo entrepreneur. And so put that there. And then same goes for at the time of the forgiveness application. I mean, if you have employees and if you added people to your team, then put that number. But if it's just you yourself and you don't have any employees, then just put 0. Keep in mind, something that is important to note is that if you do have an LLC and like you're an employee of your LLC and you've put yourself on payroll, then you would count as an employee. Where this wouldn't be the case is if, like, for example, if you are doing a side gig like Airbnb and it's not like a formal LLC structure, but you do make money from that side gig, then that's where you would put 0. But if you have a W-2 for yourself and you are an employee of your own business, then you would be counted in that head count. Next is covered period. So this is where we start to get into the nitty-gritty of the forgiveness of the PPP. So like I mentioned earlier in the video, with the PPP, there are strict rules as to where you can spend the money, but also the time frame in which those funds need to be spent in. And there is a 24-week covered time period. So whenever we're talking about forgiveness, all of the funds that you're talking about have to be spent in that 24-week window, or else they risk not being forgiven, and that means you'll have to pay those funds back. So you would want to put that covered period there, and it will typically be 24 weeks. So it would be like the day that you receive those funds and then 24 weeks out. And then you would want to include all of the expenses that you used in that 24-week period. Now, again, this is something that I've been like beating like a dead horse at this point over the last year. If you're somebody who received PPP funds, and you should have kept pretty good records of where that money was coming from. If you haven't done that, I would encourage you to go back and try to pull the receipts, invoices, bank statements as much as you can, because you will need those. And that will give you a good gauge on what the time frame that you spent these funds in. So you want to look at your records. You want to make sure to have really detailed records. That way there will be no questions when you go submit this application. Next is the question of if the borrower, together with affiliates, if applicable, received first draw PPP loans of $2 million or more, or second draw PPP loans of $2 million or more, check here. This is important because if this applies to you, you can't use this form. You have to use a different form. But I would assume the vast majority of people watching this YouTube channel did not accept $2 million in PPP funds. So that is irrelevant to the majority of you, and just leave it unchecked. Next is the two most important lines of the application. We have the amount of loan spent on payroll costs, and then we have the requested loan forgiveness amount. Now, I'm going to try to explain this in a very easy to understand way, and because of that, I may leave out some of the finer details. But basically, with this newest simplified application, it really helps solo entrepreneurs get full forgiveness of their loan. Because of the way that the PPP has been structured for the majority of the pandemic, it really gave solo entrepreneurs the short end of the stick. And because of the rules and because of the way the program was outlined, it made it very difficult for solo entrepreneurs to get 100% full forgiveness on the PPP program. And because of this, a lot of solo entrepreneurs weren't able to get full forgiveness through the PPP. But with the most recent changes, specifically revolving owner compensation replacement, people who are solo entrepreneurs can get full forgiveness. So let me give you guys an example. Like, let's say that you are a solo entrepreneur, you do not have any employees, and you received $6,000 through the PPP program. Well, before, you would only be able to get a portion of that $6,000 forgiven, and you would have had to pay back the other portion. But with these newest PPP rules regarding owner compensation replacement, meaning the amount you earn from your business, you can now get 100% of that forgiven. And in this case, you would just want to put $6,000 of the amount of the loan spent on payroll costs. So you spent 100% of the loan amount on payroll costs, and you would just simply want to put that number there. Next, we move on to the requested loan forgiveness amount. So as I mentioned a little bit ago, you would want to put the amount that you're requesting to be forgiven in this field. And because of the changes that have recently been implemented with the PPP, as a solo entrepreneur and with these new owner compensation replacement rules, you can request 100% of the PPP to be forgiven. So in this example, we spent $6,000 on payroll costs. That was the entirety of our PPP loan. So because of this, we are now going to request $6,000 in PPP forgiveness. So 100% the full amount. Next, you're going to scroll down. It's going to ask you to acknowledge a handful of information, and it's going to ask you to sign. This is information that you need to read. Of course, read it. I'm not going to read it for the sake of time and for the sake of redundancy. I've read so many of these applications, I feel like I can't read another one, but I would, of course, encourage you to read it and to understand what you're signing. You always want to make sure to have 100% comprehension of what you are obligating yourself to. So read this, sign it once you feel comfortable. And then you're going to scroll down and you are going to then sign here as well. It's going to ask you for your signature. It's going to ask you to print your name, do your date, and then do your title. There is, of course, a demographic information card here. You can choose not to do it. You don't have to do it. You can do it if you want to. I always do it, but some people prefer not to, whatever is your preference. And then you're going to scroll down, and really from here, it's just giving you different context regarding the PPP. So if there's anything that I didn't cover in this video that you find confusing, that you want some clarification on, then you can scroll down, and there is some really great resources embedded in the application that really should give you a lot of clarifications. But honestly, you guys, that is it. I mean, that's the entire application. It's pretty straightforward. Like I mentioned earlier in the video, there are a handful of different applications that you will have to fill out depending on your circumstance and how much money you've taken out. But the application I've walked you guys through today is the easiest, most streamlined version. Don't be fooled. The SBA PPP Easy form is not easier than this one. The simplified form is easier than the easy form. And there is an easy form that is much more complicated than the simplified one. So if you are somebody who is a solo entrepreneur, if you don't have employees, this is a route that you should go down. I will include a link down in the description below for a link to this so that you can check it out yourself. It is an official SBA link, and you can download the PDF of this application directly from the SBA's website. But again, like I said, this will work for most applications, especially most applications with solo entrepreneurs who took a loan of less than $150,000. Overall, though, I really try to make this video as easy to understand as possible. Forgiveness for the PPP is quite complicated, and there's a lot of nuances that come into play and a lot of things you need to keep in mind. I actually recorded this video 3 times, and each time I deleted it and re-recorded it because I felt like I was too confusing and I felt like things weren't clear enough. So this was my best shot of trying to do it in a clear, concise, and easy to understand way. But if there are some things that you still find confusing, make sure to leave a comment down below and I will definitely address that in a future video. But like always, if you have any comments, if you have anything to add, if you have any questions, make sure to leave a comment down below. And while you guys are at it, make sure to hit the like button, hit that subscribe button, and hit the notification bell. And I will see you guys in the next video.